Thank you. Okay, so let's start with the data. So what does the data say? So in 2023, 59% of pupils met the expected standard in reading, writing and maths combined. This was the same as in 2022. The percentage of pupils meeting the expected standard in reading was 73%, which was down slightly from 75% in the previous year. Maths attainment saw a small increase from 69% to 71%. Writing teacher assessment data was slightly up on 2022, with 71% of pupils meeting the expected standard, and results in grammar, punctuation and spelling were unchanged from 2022 at 72%. So we now have 2 years of data post-pandemic, and with an emphasis on raising attainment above pre-pandemic levels, 2024 SATs data could be a key indicator of where we are on that journey. So we all know that SAT success is not solely the responsibility of the Year 6 teacher. But in Year 6, we can often find ourselves plugging a lot of gaps. So as a bit of background, I taught for 13 years in primary. 8 of those years were in Year 6. I was also English lead, and I was an SLE for English and assessment as well. So it's not long since I've been in the classroom. I've been at Twinkl just over a year now. So whilst I was teaching in Year 6, I attended some thought-provoking CPD where the facilitator spoke about Year 6 being the year in which we put the cherry on the top of an already perfectly formed, no soggy bottom here cake baked in the previous year groups. What the facilitator was saying was that in an ideal world, that would be the case. In Year 6, we'd have loads of time for polishing up on previous learning, concentrating just on those Year 6 specific objectives. So the reaction in the room showed that that's not always the reality. The room of Year 6 teachers and senior leaders responded with a mixture of laughter, some whimpers of dismay, highlighting that all too often Year 6 teachers and SLT can find themselves still very much cracking the eggs and mixing the batter of the elusive knowledge cake in preparation for SATs in Year 6. And time is never on your side in Year 6, so implementing strategies to boost SAT attainment right from the start of the year is key. The next slide, please, Catherine. So some strategies that I found helped raise attainment during my 8 years as a Year 6 teacher, I'm just going to outline now. So number 1, little and often. So I found that daily practice of key grammar, spelling rules, arithmetic and reasoning questions every day during registration times had a real positive impact on retention of concepts. So on mini whiteboards, the children would answer quickfire questions displayed on the board, a review of previous learning that I just didn't have time to cover fully in class. A quick review with children marking their own work, and a quick 1, 2, 3 show me, give me an overview of what previous learning had been retained, what we needed to revisit as a class, and which children needed targeted intervention. So with that in mind, in our Twinkl Study Squad books, each section starts with a warm-up activity that is a recap of previous learning to keep that ticking along. As it's previous learning as well, it can often be those Year 4, Year 5 objectives. As we know, it's a Key Stage 2 test, it's not a Year 6 test. So the idea is to enable the children to feel success from the onset and motivate and encourage them to want to continue with the rest of the workbook. Number 2, a little test technique goes a long way. So I'm sure we've all been there. I definitely have. When a child misses unnecessary marks due to a spelling or punctuation error, especially in this bag paper 1, where sometimes they're asked to put 4 commas in or something like that for 1 mark. Similarly, if their find and copy answer in the reading paper isn't quite exact, they can lose marks. So I've definitely been that teacher, logging onto the portal, printing off the test paper and scouring it for the marks to take the child over the threshold. And it can be so disheartening when you're confident that the child understands that concept. You know, you as their teacher know that they're fully confident in it. They've just made an avoidable error in the test. So one way I found to tackle this without pressure is to give children a test paper completed by the teacher with some correct answers and some questions answered using common mistakes you've spotted in your class. They usually enjoy turning the tables and giving feedback. Even better if you give them a green teacher pen to do it with. So another thing with this in mind, another thing we've included in our Study Squad workbooks is SAT style questions with the same wording, the same mark boxes and marks allocated to each question type to be in line with the SAT as much as possible, but in a non-threatening, non-testy way. Thirdly, Magpie books. I absolutely loved using Magpie books. So I would always give a child a magpie book. It was just an exercise book divided into halves for English and maths at the start of the year. And the routine was that every single lesson, children would get these out of their tray because they never knew when something come up in the lesson that they wanted to add into their magpie book. So they'd use them every lesson to write down key things to remember, such as new vocabulary with definitions, modelled examples. And by Easter, each child would have their own home book full of personalised revision notes. I'd also print off help mats, times tables, grids, things like that from Twinkl and stick them in as well to help them. So this is something, again, that we have included in the back of each of our workbooks so that children have reference each time they use the workbook. So we've included a lot of help pages in each of our workbooks, such as spelling mats, grammar definitions, models, examples of long multiplication, for example, all the things that we would have wanted when we were in the classroom. And fourthly, targeted intervention. So I found the key to successful intervention was to first clearly identify the gaps, undertake robust question level analysis to help identify cohort-wide gaps as well as where individual children required more support. Interventions were specific, snappy, and in small groups or one-to-one. The use of structured intervention planning ensured that all staff involved in the delivery were fully prepared and confident. So our study squad workbooks are ideal for intervention. They have the written explainer as well as a QR code link to online concept video and an explainer, and a consolidation interactive game as well. So the written explainer we found was key because we've all been there in schools when the iPad trolley has not been charged or another class has taken it. So we didn't want technology to be a barrier to access those explainers. So we've also got a written explainer alongside the QR code link to the online explainer. So with the workbooks, you get access to all of the linked digital content as well. Next slide, please. So, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our study squad workbooks in a little bit more detail. Next slide, please, Catherine. So why did we create Twinkl Study Squad? So to put it simply, to help those who teach. We've all been in the classroom and we understand the unique challenges facing teachers. We wanted to create a workbooks range that would be the ultimate revision toolkit. The children would find engaging and motivating, but at the same time, it will be robust and aligned to the Key Stage 2 test framework to allow for quality intervention, gap spotting, and that all-important SATs question practice. As experienced teachers, we know all too well that teachers are increasingly more time poor. So using printed workbooks equals time saved at the photocopier and time saved searching for relevant resources. When I was in the classroom, I found it really difficult to find high quality curriculum aligned concept videos out there. Ones with clear model vocabulary, modelled examples, test technique tips and SAT style questions. I just couldn't find what I was after at all. Similarly, with high quality and engaging consolidation games, the range was really limited. So with that, Twinkl Study Squad was created. Next slide, please. So I'll talk you through some of the key features of the workbooks next and how they can be used to raise attainment. So you can see here that I've outlined the key features of our Twinkl Study Squad workbooks, and I'll talk you through a few more of them. So as well as the linked interactive features I've mentioned, the workbooks also include recognisable characters. So you can see there that that is actually a snip from our landing page, and they are all those characters together make the Twinkl Study Squad. So you may recognise the Totally Awesome Gang, for example, and children might already use this in comprehension. So Totally Awesome Gang help us with our comprehension. They also help us prep for our SATs. We felt it was really important to use recognisable characters. We also have score trackers at the end of each section, so children can keep track of their scores, celebrate their own successes. We have opportunities for self-assessment, so children can celebrate what went well and also set themselves targets. We also really wanted to put something unique in our workbooks that we've not seen out there, and mindfulness colouring was one thing that we all felt really strongly about. So we wanted to include opportunities for mindfulness and reflection at the end of each section. So our workbooks will contain a mixture of mindfulness colouring and also other fun learning activities. So now I can give you a little bit of a sneak peek into the workbooks, and yeah, I'll show you a little sneak peek. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay, so you can see here, we've got our arithmetic workbook at the top here. So this is an example of an arithmetic page. We've got the written explainer on the left-hand side. We've got the QR codes that link to the interactive concept video and the consolidation game. And you can see that the arithmetic set out a lot like it is in the sets. The reading page here, this example is actually those tricky 3-mark questions that involve digging into the text for finding an impression and then digging into the text for the evidence. And the SPAG workbook, you can see there, we're highlighting the QR codes that link to the revision videos and the interactive games. Next slide, please. This is an example of the progress tracker and a self-reflection. So you can see there it says what went well and then my target to improve. And that is an example of one of our mindfulness colouring activities. So it's linked to one of our Totally Awesome Gang dogs, and I just think it's lovely. And then on the next page, we've got an example of a fun maths activity as well. So it's a mixture in the workbooks of whether it's a colouring activity or something a bit fun like a code breaker, things like that the children seem to enjoy. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I've mentioned a little bit about our Go games, our linked interactive content, so I'll tell you a little bit more about them. So for each concept in the workbooks, there is a QR code linking to a consolidation Go game that completely aligns with the test framework and the content of the workbooks. So these can be accessed through the QR codes, or they can also be accessed through our landing page as well on site. So if you purchase the workbooks, all of the linked interactive content, so the Go games and the concept videos are all included, so you can get access to all of those. So just some examples there on the slide, you can see the spellings ones, those tricky statutory spellings. We've got some reading, arithmetic, grammar and maths as well. And then I've just popped a link on there as well for the free taster pack. So on our Study Squad landing page, you can actually download a free taster pack. It's got quite a few pages in there for you to have a little look at to see if you like it, and a little bit more information about the characters and everything in the taster pack. Okay, next slide, please. So I've mentioned the concept videos a few times, but this is a video now we're going to play to give you a little bit more information about them and how fabulous they are. Thank you.
Hi and welcome to Twinkl CPD, where you can find CPD that works.
Inside the Study Squad workbooks, you'll find QR codes that link you to our Twinkl concept videos.
These videos are aimed at children and are perfect for homework help, SATs revision, interventions, or for use in the classroom. They're created by experts and delivered by qualified and experienced teachers. Each video contains a teacher-led section to help children understand a particular maths or English concept. There are also SAT-style practice questions to help children try out the concept themselves, and challenge questions to help them develop a deeper understanding. Each video is just a few minutes long and focuses on one specific learning objective. As well as being perfect for children to use independently, these videos are great at supporting teachers and parents. Whether you're looking for examples of how to teach the concept in your classroom, or ways to support your child with their homework.
As well as being accessed via the QR codes, you can also find all the videos by typing concept videos into the search bar on the Twinkl website.
To get started with these videos, simply click on Launch to watch them now, or click on the 3 dots to download them to your computer.
Study Squad workbooks and Twinkl concept videos are here to help you raise attainment in Key Stage 2. So why not check them out now?
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Becky now, who's going to talk a little bit more about raising attainment in maths.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. So as Louise said at the beginning, I'm the product owner for maths at Twinkl. I have been out of the classroom just over 18 months now. I have experience across Key Stage 2 and in Year 6 as well as being Key Stage leader. And more recently, I have been involved in some research for mastery, which is what I specialise in. So I could fill a day talking about raising attainment in maths, but I only have 10 minutes. So if you go on to the next slide, please, Catherine. I've chosen to use this particular report to sort of guide our short session today. There is a link to it there for you from the Education Endowment Foundation. If you're not familiar with the Education Endowment Foundation, it is a wealth of materials which can show you the easiest ways to raise attainment in lots of different situations. They're a charity, independent charity, who was set up to talk about raising attainment for children from families with lower income. But as we know, things that will help children with lower income will help all children. So there's lots and lots of really good information there. I think Bethany might be talking about them again later when she talks about English. So there is a piece of guidance which was updated in November, which is about specifically raising attainment and improving maths in Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. And you can obviously go to the website yourself, have a little look through. But what I've done is I've tried to summarise each of the recommendations and have put a few links to some of our resources. Obviously, with the internet being so wide now, there are so many things out there to help you in improving maths, and it can be difficult to know where to start. And of course, as Sarah said earlier, in an ideal world, all these things would be in place, structures and processes would be there, and everybody would be, by the time they got to year 6, they would be really good mathematicians. And when I say good mathematicians, I'm not necessarily talking about mathematical ability, talking about mathematical understanding, and they would be ready to go. A lot of the things that I'm going to mention now would be much better placed being put in place across the whole school, but it's never too late to think about really supporting those children to become better mathematicians all the way through. So hopefully there's some things you can do in year 6 as well as throughout the school that can help. So the first recommendation from the EEF report is to use assessment to build upon existing knowledge and understanding. Assessment is a wonderful tool. However, by itself, it can't do very much. It's not really about the assessment itself, it's what you do with the assessment. And I think for teachers, sometimes that can be a bit daunting. Assessment and the time it takes to analyse assessment can take a really long time. But what you need to remember is that the assessment is actually, it's not about you, or it's not about grades for the school, it's about for individual children. For children, it doesn't matter to them what the overall attainment of the class is. They want to know, quite simply, what they have, what they can't do very well, and how they can get better. So it's really important that any assessment is informing your planning and is actually changing the way children work. Test after test after test, whilst can help you with test technique and can certainly help fluency, isn't going to help understanding if nothing's done with it. So it's really important that what is done with the assessment, it feeds into what you decide to do with your class. Feedback it's a difficult one because it is time consuming if you wanted to do it the correct way. We know that in an ideal situation, you could sit one-to-one with a child, talk through their test paper and give them instant feedback, and that would be fantastic, but it's not doable in an everyday classroom. So it's thinking about what feedback you give and how you identify misconceptions, both for individual children and for your class. Now, we do have assessments and trackers so that you can fill in the details of the assessments, and it will show you with some quick color coding what your class maybe need to work on, what you maybe need to spend some time working on with your class or a group, and also where there might be some gaps. And it's really important with those gaps, making sure you know what the misconception is that the children have, and not just saying, okay, well, they couldn't answer that question, so they don't know how to add. It's really picking apart what the difficult questions were and going from there. So assessment, yeah, fantastic tool as long as it's used correctly. And of course, not scarily, we can use assessments in a test situation, but that's not the only way they can be used. You could do some paired, trying to take away the fear of assessment is really important. So you modeling going through a test paper might be really, really powerful. Doing some things in pairs, talking about it. You can do lots of things, not just working in a test situation. As Sarah said earlier, just dropping the odd question in, a question at the very beginning of each lesson is one way of doing it. It doesn't have to be in one big chunk of a test. So assessment is the first recommendation. Thank you, Catherine. Recommendation number 2 is about manipulatives and representations. The concrete pictorial abstract approach has been really popular in schools for some time now, and with very good reasoning. However, it does come with a little bit of a warning. I worked in a 5-form entry school quite recently in my teaching experience, and when I first started teaching at the school, they were set by preconceived attainment, and very much the children who were slower to grasp concepts, who were in what was probably labelled incorrectly as the bottom set, were very, very good at using manipulatives. Brilliant. They could do whole 4-digit addition, 4-digit subtraction. Brilliant with place value counters. But when you ask them to talk about what they were doing, what they'd actually done is just learn a method, but it wasn't an abstract method. It was through using materials. So it's really important. The whole point of manipulatives in maths isn't just so that they've got something tangible, although some children may really need that. It's a scaffold to understanding a written abstract concept. So it's really understanding. So if you give them quite a different type of problem, they will be able to apply it to that as well. It's not just being able to follow a set of procedures like an algorithm. So yeah, it's CPA approach is so, so important across the school and for every learner. One of the key things in mastery is for children to show greater depth. They should be able to show how to solve a problem in 3-4 different ways, one of which might be drawing pictures or using manipulatives. So they definitely have a really important place in the maths journey. It's just important that you know when to withdraw those manipulatives and move on. And really powerful too, to use those alongside written methods. You know, if you've really got a child that's struggling to understand how to do, for example, a short division calculation, you might need to go back to using those counters. And it's okay to do that in year 6 and beyond, if that's going to help understanding. But it'll be about building that understanding, then using it alongside a written calculation, and then eventually withdrawing the scaffolding so they can use the abstract approach by itself. Thank you, Catherine. On to recommendation number 3, which is problem solving. There are some really good blogs. Both of those links there are also from the Education Endowment Foundation. They're really, really useful for problem solving. I think if you go back not so far, you will find you would have found lots of classrooms with lots of rucksacks and lots of mnemonics for how to solve problems. And again, that is very definitely an algorithm, and there is a place for it 100%. If you're doing a worded problem, you might use certain acronyms to help you remember procedures. But problem solving, and the problem solving we should be teaching in school, is more about strategies than algorithms. It's about tooling your children up with lots of different strategies so that when they see a problem, they know they can pull upon their toolkit to solve it. And I think in past years, when that dreaded SATs paper comes and you get that first look when the test is started and you think, oh, that is a horrible question. Why have they done that? They're trying to trick the children. Actually, what they're doing is assessing understanding. And that is what is really important about math teaching in schools now, is that we're teaching understanding. We're not teaching routine and algorithms. We're teaching children to become better mathematicians and being able to apply their strategies to other things. And the last point there, I think, is really important. Children don't intrinsically know how to solve problems. They need to be taught how to do it, whether you're modeling that or you're providing worked examples. It's a really important part of math teaching today that you are really picking apart and teaching pattern spotting, finding all the solutions and all those things. And I've just put a few key questions there of ways you might do that in your maths lessons. Thank you, Catherine. Recommendation 4 is about a rich network of mathematical knowledge. The maths curriculum is huge and it's growing all the time. And it's really important to be able to apply those problem solving strategies, but it's also important for children to have seen different mathematical structures, and fluency has a really strong place. There are 37 key facts that if you know them, written multiplication are going to come much, much easier. You can really concentrate on what the multiplication is doing rather than having to use your fingers to count up what 5 times 7 is, for example. So it's really important that fluency is still practiced. I think when mastery came in, lots of people very much were like, oh, we mustn't do sheets and sheets of the same thing. And yeah, when you're teaching a new concept, that's true. We shouldn't be just doing the same thing over and over again. But there's a really strong evidence base that shows that if you know those facts to automaticity, then you will be able to apply them much more easily to harder problems. So it's really important that you have that practice, and whether you do that through an app, and there's a link there to our mental maths app, or through Go games, or through songs, whatever it takes, learning those times tables, but also number bonds, what happens when you make a number 10 times bigger, 10 times smaller, doubling, halving, all of those things. Really important to practice and practice and practice, so that they're just there. And we don't have to spend lots of our cognition, or lots of our brain power in finding those facts rather than applying them to problems. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so recommendation number 5 is about independence and motivation. I think we've probably all sat in a parents' evening where parents have sat down and said, oh, I'm just not very good at maths, or I hated maths, or oh, fractions, oh, algebra. It's really important that whilst we can share our understanding of maths and our own experiences of maths, absolutely, it's important to do so, we need to try to model positive attitudes towards maths all the way through. We need to have a very much a can-do attitude, which is why the mastery approach very much focuses on taking away language like high ability, lower ability, suggests you don't set, suggests you have mixed ability. It's all about positivity. We had the last classroom I worked in, we taught with mastery, and we had, you could feel the maths in the room. Was a lovely comment I got from an inspector who came in. It was like a teamwork. We were in it together, and we were loving the maths, and we were talking about the maths, and it didn't matter whether a child understood that math so quickly and was so quick, or needed a little bit more time. We were all in it together. And I think that attitude and that maths feel is really important if you can get there. Another reason why it's really important not to have children who are slower graspers removed from the classroom, because they can hear and appreciate and absorb some really good mathematical thinking from their classmates. And they are able to contribute to that as well. And it's about everybody being able to contribute towards the maths in a classroom. And the way you do that can be, there's loads of ways to make maths fun. I know some people will find it easier than others, but it's about trying to use all those things out there that can do that. So Sarah's already talked about the Go games. We've got some Crack the Case. There's some maths mysteries. There's loads of things out there which can practice math skills, but in a fun way. And then recommendation number 6 is about challenge and support. I touched briefly on thinking about children's ability in maths, which is something we do try to avoid if we can in maths education now. But challenge and support is a really good way of looking at it. Of course, the children who need the support and need the challenge won't be the same every lesson, and definitely won't be the same across different strands of maths. Some children have really, really good shape knowledge and spatial awareness, and some children don't, and that won't necessarily tie up with their how quick they pick up new maths concepts in number, for example. But it's important that your design of tasks is going to pick up on those challenges and provide support for children that need it. Task design is really, really tricky. If you haven't done any mastery research, there's loads out there about procedural and conceptual knowledge. You can get to quite difficult maths quite quickly. If you're teaching a new concept, you start at the very, very beginning, and then we use very, very small steps to get up something quite complex. And that can be done in a whole class situation, but it does take a lot of practice and a lot of graft, but you can get there. So there's lots of things that we provide at Twinkl to support with that. We've got some interventions specifically for greater depth children who are already showing that they've mastered a particular maths topic, and also children who are maybe on the cusp of that as well. So interventions, I'm going to talk about interventions next, but it's not just for one particular group of children. It's about moving all children on in their maths knowledge. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so last 2 then. So this one, I've just alluded to interventions. We have a whole collection of same-day interventions on our site. Again, I know I've said it again before, but in an ideal world, you would be able to do interventions the same day that the maths was being taught. I know from my own experience that isn't always possible. But intervention is best if it's as early as possible. So, and as early as possible would really be lower down the school than year 6, but we know that that's not going to be the case. So as early as possible, as close to the learning in class as possible. And intervention doesn't have to be after the learning. Pre-teaching interventions are just as important and a really good way to make those children who lack confidence feel like they know what they're doing and they can bring something to the lesson. So there's a whole wealth of interventions that we have available, and it can be very tricky, can't it? If you haven't got a TA or another member of staff to help you out, you haven't got time in your timetable, it doesn't have to be a 25-minute session. It can be 5 minutes. It could be 5 minutes a day on this during the register, just before we go home, something just to keep those skills going. And recommendation number 8 might be out of your hands a little bit, but it's about making sure that that transition between primary and secondary is really, really strong. So I think historically there's not always been the best communication between some primary and secondary schools. I think that's improved in recent years. It's just making sure that the secondary schools that if you are in year 6, that you're sending children to, are aware of any gaps and misconceptions, as well as any real high flyers and rapid graspers you have in maths, and just having that conversation, and where possible transition days, activities between primary and secondary. And I think that is my final slide. I've realized I've spoken very, very quickly. I've tried to fit in a whole day's CPD there in 10 minutes, but hopefully the links on the slide will help you out if you need a little more information. I will pass over to Bethany now to talk about English.
Hi everyone. As Louise mentioned at the start, I'm Bethany Harris. I am the product owner for Twinkl's English Interventions. I taught in schools in the UK and internationally for over 10 years, and I was English lead for 7 of those years. So as you can probably tell, I love nothing more than to talk about teaching English and how we can better our teaching practice. And one key area that always comes up again and again is raising attainment, especially when working towards the Key Stage 2 stats. English covers a broad range of skills, and it is important that we as teachers ensure all areas are targeted in order to raise attainment in literacy successfully. So I'm going to guide you through some key recommendations, and as we go through, hopefully provide you with some useful resources that Twinkl offer, which have been developed after extensive research. These resources have been designed with your work-life balance in mind and are comprehensive, accessible and easy to follow. I will refer to some research throughout, so if you just keep your eye on the chat box, we will post links into these in here. I think the slides are on there, yeah. So as Becky referred to, I will also continue to discuss the Education Endowment Foundation's recommendations, but this time for raising attainment in Key Stage 2 literacy. And as Becky briefly touched on this, it is created by researchers from different fields linked to education, and their aim is to ensure we break the link between family income and educational achievement. Many schools put children from disadvantaged backgrounds at the forefront of their priorities, and if we can break the cycle for them, then we can break the cycle we can do it for everyone. On their website, they also have a display poster covering the key principles if anyone wants a reminder of these. I think it's, again, worth mentioning the abundance of materials on their site, as they continuously update resources as new research comes out. And at Twinkl, we help those who teach, and many of us work with researchers at the Education Endowment Foundation to help us to improve our practice and to improve the resources that we offer to schools. Next slide, please. So the first recommendation is to develop pupils' language capabilities, and this is focusing on speaking and listening. I know it can often seem difficult to find time to add this into the curriculum, so it's important to find ways to integrate it into lessons daily. That's a great start. It doesn't need to be taught in isolation at all. In order to do it, we want to be creating purposeful speaking and listening activities where we can promote high quality dialogue. And if that's for 5 minutes or if that's for 20 minutes, it doesn't matter, as long as that talk opportunity is rich and children are able to engage in discussions and talk together. So how could this look in your classroom? There could be opportunities to engage in a range of activities, On a daily basis, this might be talking through our learning and having opportunities to collaborate and for collaborative learning to take place. Throughout the year, we might be seeing discussions and debates and presentations and performances happening. These can all be linked to other areas of learning. It might be in English, it might be across the curriculum. And these are really important because they put children in unfamiliar situations where they can boost their social and emotional speaking skills. And this is outlined in the Oris's skills framework and glossary, the importance of improving speaking and listening in young children and how that can lead to their success. We also want to see an environment where talk is promoted and teachers use relevant questions to extend conversations and promote talk. Often children don't have this opportunity at home. Some children do come into school and that is the main place where they are talking and discussing ideas. So it's really important that we do find time to do it, even if it is just 5 minutes at the end of the day. And considering all this, we are bringing out a new English scheme called Read, Write, Succeed. It promotes a love for reading and provides a purpose for writing, speaking and listening. We also have our boost interventions, which are carefully designed so that any adult can pick them up and successfully deliver our intervention sessions. Specifically, our SAT survival scheme contains booster packs, which cover speaking and listening. These aim to provide additional support for anyone still working towards the expected standard. Next slide, please. The recommendations then move on to reading. And there is so much research on teaching reading, it can be very daunting. However, if we take small steps where you can support fluent reading capabilities, model comprehension strategies, that's a great start. Reading strategies need to be scaffolded, so there should be plenty of opportunity to read together for a range of purposes. This means that you and children or children with children can answer questions together and improve their reading skills. It's really important that we read aloud and model our reading so that children can engage in a text with us. When they're not having to read the words, they can listen and they can still be involved in answering comprehension questions based around this. And here you can really target key comprehension skills. Children can answer verbally, they can provide written answers. You can have a range of these across your different reading sessions throughout the week. And again, the reading framework highlights the importance of targeting children who need to catch up. So we do offer our SAT survival scheme, and this contains differentiated reading packs for both children aiming towards working at and those for aiming to greater depth. There are 5 daily activities which cover different reading strategies. They also include SAT style questions. The aim of this is to familiarise children with these, preparing them to succeed. Next slide, please. The recommendations then move on to writing. Throughout my career as English lead, I would constantly be highlighting a purpose for writing, and I actually ended up writing my master's thesis on this as I feel so passionate about it. As adults, we never write without a purpose, so we should have that same expectation for our children. That purpose provides excellent motivation for our young writers, and there are so many different hooks that we can give to make their writing successful. I really believe if you have the power to bring writing to life, then you will engage learners and progress will improve and progress will come. Linking it back again to the speaking and listening, you can add role play, hot seating, character profiling into lessons to develop confidence and allow children to develop their writing from learning from others. I think a key message is actually the build up to writing is as important as the writing itself, and we need to have that solid build up towards the text and children writing the text themselves so that they're able to achieve it successfully. It's useful to provide a writing toolbox for children. This can come alongside a great model text, generally known as a waggle. These model These model texts highlight key features of each text type so that children of all abilities can begin to understand what they need to do to write it. It can also help us to break down writing for children, so children of different abilities can focus on key areas for their writing. And a writing unit should then unfold to teach children these key features of the text, whether it be a SPAG concept or a structure of a text. When teaching writing, we should allow time for the writing process as well, and this is really important and can sometimes be missed. This is because during pre-writing, children can talk through their ideas. When they draft their work, they're not having to think about their handwriting and their spelling and their perfect grammar. They are free to jot and get their ideas down first before they can start to think about that. It's then when they come on to the revising and the editing stages that they can start to consolidate their learning by checking for those errors in grammar and punctuation and spelling, and they can find different ways to improve their writing. Often missed as well is the final stage, the publishing stage. And this is incredibly valuable to a child, as this is their time to show off. This is their time to show the world how great they are at writing. Whether the world is somebody else in their class or it's on a display for people to see in school, whether it's in a learning showcase assembly or parents are invited in to have a look and celebrate their learning, it doesn't matter, and it can be a variety of ways across the year. I always said as English lead, you don't have to do it in every writing unit, but try to make sure that you do one publishing every term, so that children really have that time to show off how great they are. A well thought out curriculum is crucial, where children revisit text types throughout their schooling, broadening their understanding of each, so they can be written appropriately when they enter the real world. I know when I was teaching, the best writing always came from writing that had an interesting hook to it. So I guess ask yourself, when children begin a writing task, why are they writing this? Is it because that's what my lesson plan is telling me to do? Or is it because, say, we carried out research on how healthy our school meals are, and now we want to write a persuasive letter to our local council to change school meals? This purpose can provide those excellent cross-curricular links and can be used to empower the next generation to create change in their world. If children develop a love for writing, they will have a better chance of adding the correct SPAG into texts that they are engaged in. Again, each of our carefully crafted Read, Write, Succeed units, it creates a purpose for writing, and our SAT Survival bumper packs contain quick think and write activities, which can be easily adapted to suit your learners. They can be easily adapted to link with your topics to create that purpose for writing. Next slide, please. Moving on to the transcription element of writing, which is our handwriting and our SPAG. Here we think about how ideas are written down, and we aim to help our young writers to improve these skills so they can write coherently, allowing the reader to understand their purpose for writing. We need to provide extensive practice and effective feedback on this. So alongside these rich English lessons full of talk and purposes for writing, we do still need to have those standalone handwriting lessons where we can focus solely on letter formation and fluency, so that when children do come to write, they are able to write confidently during that drafting stage. The Handwriting Association is a great website. It is a charity, and it has lots of information about teaching handwriting and how we can better our practice in schools. And they make an incredibly valid point that if children are focusing on transcription during that drafting stage, they are unable to think about all the other elements of writing needed to compose their work. So having that separate standalone handwriting lesson is really important so that we can practice those skills with children alongside it. Our Twinkl handwriting schemes focus on successful letter formation before moving on to joins at the start of Key Stage 2. So we have two schemes, and in Key Stage 1, they are the same. and they follow the same learning journey. And then when you get to Key Stage 2, you can choose to either follow our Journey to Cursive or Journey to Continuous Cursive scheme. And both schemes are designed with flexibility in mind, so schools can either follow our recommended route or they can adapt the schemes to suit their needs. Within our Boost range, we also have our Racing Ahead Key Stage 2 handwriting intervention. This is a 6-week intervention and can be used for whole class, small group, or one-to-one sessions. Focusing on spelling, our Twinkl spelling program comes with a web and mobile app. It teaches spelling in isolation and provides context for children to understand the meanings of words and practice spelling rules. The app also brings a fun element to it, and spelling practice can be accessed both in school and at home using our apps. Next slide, please. And finally, the recommendations are about targeted interventions and high quality assessments. Our SAT survival intervention schemes offer extensive resources to support children to reach their attainment targets by the end of Key Stage 2. We have a number of practice booklets where children can practice SAT style questions. To add some variety to learning and to SATs prep, we have some Be the Teacher packs where children can work together to mark an example child's work. They highlight misconceptions and they find ways to help them to tackle their question successfully. We also have our 5 for 5 reading assessments where children can practice reading skills in short 5-minute bursts. These are excellent for whole class throughout the day and of course can be incredibly beneficial for those children who have a much shorter attention span. And next slide, please. So I know that was a lot of information to take in. I could continue to talk about this, but I won't. I hope you can take something from this. And for me personally, it would be to think about providing a purpose for learning to engage and empower our children, and to offer a range of experiences within the classroom to raise attainment and increase cultural capital for all. Thank you.